Ma'am, this badge is fake.
Officer, I'm Commander Hayes. That's my military ID.
Step away from the vehicle, please.
I'm telling you, I'm active duty Navy. Call the base. Call anyone.
You're under arrest for impersonating a federal officer.
Officer Ryan Callahan had 9 years with the Oceanside Police Department and a spotless record when he made the most catastrophic mistake of his law enforcement career on a Tuesday afternoon outside Naval Base San Diego. What should have been a routine traffic checkpoint turned into a jurisdictional nightmare that would reach the Secretary of Defense's desk within 4 hours. Commander Patricia Hayes was driving exactly 28 miles per hour through a checkpoint zone. No violations, no erratic behavior, just a decorated naval officer heading back to base after a dentist appointment. But Officer Callahan looked at her military credentials and decided they were counterfeit. That single decision would cost the city $1.2 million, trigger a federal review of local law enforcement protocols, and create a diplomatic incident that made international news. What happened next would expose a training failure so severe that it forced every police department within 50 miles of a military installation to completely overhaul their procedures. 3 people would lose their jobs. 1 officer would become unemployable, and the Pentagon would get involved in ways that small-town police departments never want to experience. Before we break down exactly how this spiraled from a simple checkpoint to a federal crisis, hit that subscribe button. Stories about accountability matter, and your support helps us keep bringing them to light. Now, let's get into what really happened that Tuesday afternoon. Officer Callahan wasn't a bad cop. His record showed consistent performance reviews, community service hours, and 0 excessive force complaints. But there was something missing in his file that should have been there: mandatory training on military identification protocols. The department offered it 3 times a year. Callahan had skipped it every single time for the past 4 years. His supervisor, Sergeant Linda Torres, would later admit in a deposition that she never enforced attendance. "Officers are busy," she said. "We assumed they'd pick it up on the job." That assumption was about to destroy multiple careers. 3:17 p.m. Commander Hayes pulled up to the checkpoint on Harbor Drive. 6 cars ahead of her. Standard DUI and registration check. She had her military ID ready, a Common Access Card, or CAC, the standard identification for all Department of Defense personnel. It had her photo, rank, clearance level, and a holographic overlay that changed angles in the light. Callahan waved the first 5 cars through after quick license checks. When Hayes pulled forward, something changed in his demeanor. He stared at her CAC card for 15 seconds, turned it over twice, held it up to the sunlight. "Ma'am, this doesn't look right." Patricia did exactly what any military officer would do. She stayed calm, kept her hands visible, explained clearly and respectfully. "Officer, that's a Common Access Card. It's standard issue for all active duty military and DoD personnel. You can verify it by calling the base. I'm stationed less than 2 miles from here." She pointed to the holographic seal, the embedded chip, the Department of Defense insignia, everything that made the card legitimate and nearly impossible to counterfeit. Callahan wasn't listening. He was already forming a conclusion based on something he didn't understand. The card looked different from a driver's license, different from a passport. Therefore, in his mind, it had to be fake. "Step out of the vehicle, please." Patricia's heart rate kicked up, but her training held. 15 years in the Navy. Deployments to the Persian Gulf. Command of a destroyer's communications division. She dealt with hostile waters and international incidents. She could handle a confused police officer. "Sir, I'm happy to step out, but I need you to understand this is a military ID. I can provide additional verification. My commanding officer is—" "Ma'am, I'm not going to ask again." She stepped out. Hands visible, no sudden movements. 2 other officers at the checkpoint glanced over but didn't approach. This looked routine to them. Callahan examined the CAC card again, this time holding it against his own driver's license for comparison. They looked nothing alike. To him, that confirmed his suspicion. "This is a fake ID. Do you have any other identification?" "Officer, I have my driver's license, but That CAC card is legitimate. It has my photo, my rank, Your driver's license, please. She handed it over. California driver's license. Clean record. Address listed as on-base housing at Naval Base San Diego. That should have been the moment Callahan paused, reconsidered, made a phone call. Instead, he radioed dispatch. I've got a female driver at the harbor checkpoint with fraudulent federal credentials, claiming to be military personnel, requesting backup and a supervisor. Every word of that transmission was wrong. Every single word. Officer, please, just call the base. The number is on the back of my card. They can verify everything in 30 seconds. Callahan pocketed both IDs. Ma'am, you need to place your hands on the vehicle. Patricia felt that sinking realization that this wasn't going to end with a conversation. She was about to be detained, possibly arrested, for having legitimate credentials that a police officer didn't recognize. She complied. Hands on the hood. The metal was hot from the afternoon sun. Other drivers slowed as they passed through adjacent lanes, phones already coming out. Jennifer Moss was 3 cars back in the checkpoint line. She had her phone out to text her husband about dinner plans when she saw a police officer pulling someone from their vehicle. So then she noticed the woman's uniform jacket in the back seat, Navy service khakis with rank insignia, clearly visible. I thought that can't be right, Jennifer would later say in her witness statement. You don't arrest military people at a checkpoint 2 miles from their own base. Something was very wrong. She started recording. So did the driver next to her, and the driver behind him. Within 90 seconds, 4 different angles were capturing what happened next. Type verify in the comments if you think one phone call could have prevented this entire situation, because what happened in the next 8 minutes made everything exponentially worse. Backup arrived. Officer Dennis Park pulled up, saw Callahan with a cooperative woman in civilian clothes against a vehicle, and assumed his partner had the situation under control. He didn't ask questions, didn't request context, just positioned himself nearby. Callahan pulled out handcuffs. Ma'am, you're under arrest for possession of fraudulent federal identification and impersonating a federal officer. Patricia's voice stayed level. Officer, I am a federal officer. I'm a commander in the United States Navy. You are making a serious mistake. Turn around and place your hands behind your back. If you're realizing this situation is spiraling into something that's going to have massive consequences, you're right. Subscribe now because we're about to show you exactly how one officer's refusal to verify information created a federal incident that would change department policy nationwide. Let's continue. The handcuffs clicked shut. Patricia Hayes, 15-year decorated officer, Bronze Star recipient, and commander of 120 personnel, was being arrested in front of rush-hour traffic on a public road. Jennifer Moss stopped recording and called 911. I'm at the harbor checkpoint and I'm watching a police officer arrest someone who I'm pretty sure is actual military. She has a Navy uniform in her car and he's saying her ID is fake. Someone needs to get a supervisor here now. The dispatcher, confused by a 911 call about police needing police, flagged it for immediate supervisor response. 2 more checkpoint officers noticed the commotion. Officer Sarah Kim walked over. What's going on? Callahan, already committed to his decision, doubled down. Fake military ID, possible stolen valor situation. She's being detained for processing. Patricia was placed in the back of Callahan's patrol car. Through the window, she could see her vehicle, her Navy uniform jacket visible on the back seat, and growing line of checkpoint traffic as drivers slowed to watch and record. She asked for her phone call. Callahan said she'd get it at the station. She asked again for someone to contact the base. Callahan closed the door. Officer Kim looked uncomfortable. She walked to Hayes' vehicle and looked inside. Navy uniform, military duffel bag, base parking permit on the dashboard. She pulled out her phone and Googled Common Access Card. The first result showed exactly what Patricia had been carrying. Same format, same holographic overlay, same DoD insignia. Kim's stomach dropped. She walked quickly to Callahan, Ryan, I think she's telling the truth. That looks like a real military ID. I already called it in. She's going to booking. Did you verify with the base? I know a fake ID when I see one. The patrol car pulled away from the checkpoint with Patricia in the back seat. She watched Naval Base San Diego pass by on her right, the base where she'd reported for duty every morning for 3 years, where her commanding officer was likely wondering why she was late for a 4 p.m. briefing, where 300 sailors knew her by name and rank. At that exact moment, her commanding officer, Captain Vincent Torres, was calling her cell phone. It rang 4 times in the evidence bag in Callahan's trunk. No answer. Torres tried her office line. Her assistant said she'd left for a dental appointment and should have been back by now. Torres felt the first whisper of concern. Hayes was never late, never out of contact. Something wasn't right, and he called base security. Run a check on Commander Patricia Hayes. She's not responding and she's overdue from off base. Just confirm she's not in any incident reports. While base security was running that check, Sergeant Linda Torres arrived at the checkpoint. She'd gotten the 911 call from Jennifer Moss, the radio traffic from Callahan, and a very confused message from dispatch saying civilians were reporting an officer arresting military personnel. She pulled Officer Kim aside. What happened? Kim explained. The CAC card. Callahan's insistence it was fake. The refusal to verify. The arrest. Torres went pale. Where is she now? Ryan took her to booking. Torres grabbed her radio. All units, this is Sergeant Torres. I need an immediate location on Officer Callahan. Do not process any detainee until I arrive. Repeat, do not process. She got in her vehicle and drove 80 miles per hour toward the station, already knowing this was going to be catastrophic. She'd been a sergeant for 12 years. She'd seen officers make mistakes, but arresting military personnel for having military ID, that was a new level of disaster. Callahan pulled into the station parking lot. Patricia, still calm but now deeply worried about her career and the briefing she was missing, asked one more time for someone to contact her command. You'll get your phone call after booking. He escorted her inside. The desk sergeant, Maria Chen, looked up from her paperwork and saw handcuffs on a woman in business casual attire. What's the charge? Fraudulent federal ID impersonating military personnel. Chen took the evidence bag with Patricia's CAC card. He examined it for 5 seconds, looked at Callahan like he'd grown a second head. Ryan, this is a DoD Common Access card. This is real? That's what she claimed, but no. I did 4 years Army. I carried one of these every single day. This is legitimate. The hologram, the chip, the formatting, everything checks out. Chen looked at Patricia. Ma'am, what's your rank? Commander, United States Navy, stationed at Naval Base San Diego. And I'm about to miss a classified briefing that I really can't miss. Chen's expression shifted from confusion to horror. She reached for the phone. I'm calling the base right now. Ryan, you need to remove those handcuffs immediately. You're watching a mistake transform into a career-ending catastrophe in real time. If you want to see how these accountability stories play out and what happens when systems fail, subscribe to stay updated on cases like this. Now, let's get into the fallout, because it's about to get much worse for everyone involved. Sergeant Torres arrived at the station as Chen was on the phone with Naval Base San Diego's security office. The conversation lasted 15 seconds. Yes, Commander Patricia Hayes is active duty. Yes, we have her in custody. No, there are no charges that I understand. Yes, I'll have our supervisor contact your command immediately. Chen hung up and turned to Torres. The base is sending their legal officer, and they've contacted the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. NCIS is en route. Torres felt her career prospects evaporate in that moment. NCIS, Federal Investigators, for a wrongful arrest of a military officer. She looked at Callahan, who was finally starting to understand the magnitude of his error. Uncuff her, now! The handcuffs came off. Patricia rubbed her wrists and checked her watch. 4:23 p.m. 23 minutes late for a classified briefing. Her spotless service record was about to have its first blemish. because a police officer didn't recognize standard military identification. "Commander Hayes, I am so incredibly sorry," Torres began. "There has been a massive misunderstanding and—" "Sergeant, I need to contact my commanding officer immediately. I'm late for a classified briefing and I've been unreachable for over an hour." Torres handed her a desk phone. Patricia dialed Captain Torres's direct line. He answered on the first ring. "Hayes, where the hell are you?" "I'm NCIS, just called me saying you were arrested by local police." "Sir, I'm at Oceanside PD. I was detained at a checkpoint because an officer didn't recognize my CAC card. I'm fine, but I need to explain why I missed the briefing." The line went quiet for 3 seconds. When Torres spoke again, his voice had gone from worried to coldly furious. "Stand by, Commander. Do not leave that building. I'm on my way with our legal team." While Patricia waited for her command to arrive, Sergeant Torres started pulling records. What she found made her nauseous. Officer Callahan had been offered military liaison training 4 times a year for the past 4 years. 16 opportunities to learn how to identify military credentials, understand jurisdiction issues near bases, and coordinate with military police. 16 times he'd skipped it, marked scheduling conflict, or patrol priority. But it got worse. 3 other officers in the department had also skipped that training. Consistently. For years. And nobody had enforced attendance because it was marked optional in the system. Torres dug deeper. In the past 18 months, there had been 7 incidents of military personnel being questioned or briefly detained at checkpoints because officers didn't recognize CAC cards, military driver's licenses, or base access credentials. 7 times. None had escalated to arrest because the other officers had called for supervisors or contacted the base. This wasn't just Callahan's failure. This was systemic. Captain Vincent Torres arrived with Naval Base San Diego's legal officer, Lieutenant Commander Rachel Kim, and 2 NCIS agents. The temperature in the station dropped 20 degrees when they walked in. Lieutenant Commander Kim spoke first. "I need to see the arrest report, the evidence, and speak with the arresting officer. Now." They reviewed everything. The checkpoint stop, the refusal to verify, the arrest, the detention, the timeline. Kim's assessment was clinical and devastating. Officer Callahan detained a commissioned officer of the United States military for possessing legitimate military credentials. He refused multiple requests to verify her identity through proper channels. He ignored visible indicators of her service, uniform and vehicle, base parking permit, on-base address on her driver's license. This rises to the level of false imprisonment and potentially interference with military operations. One of the NCIS agents added, "Commander Hayes was late to a classified briefing because of this detention. That briefing involved operational planning with time-sensitive intelligence." Yeah, this isn't just a wrongful arrest issue. This potentially impacted national security operations. The police chief, Thomas Reed, arrived at the station. He'd been in a budget meeting when his phone exploded with calls. Department head, city attorney, mayor's office. And now he was staring at federal agents and military legal counsel in his building. "Someone explain to me how we arrested a Navy commander." The body cameras told the whole story. Callahan's footage showed Patricia calmly explaining her credentials, repeatedly offering to contact the base, pointing out verification features on her CAC card. Her voice never raised. Her hands stayed visible. She did everything correctly. The witness videos showed the same thing, but from angles that made it even worse. The Navy uniform clearly visible in the back seat. Yet the base parking permit on the dashboard. The professional compliance of someone who'd spent 15 years following protocols. Jennifer Moss's video had audio, clear audio. You could hear Patricia saying, "Officer, please just call the base. The number is on the back of my card." You could hear Callahan refusing, over and over, refusing. The CAC card itself was analyzed by the department's fraud unit, legitimate, every security feature present, hologram authentic, embedded chip functional. The kind of ID that costs the government $80 to produce and requires biometric data and security clearances to obtain. not something you fake at a copy shop. The investigation report, completed 3 weeks later, was 47 pages long. The key findings burned. Training failure. The department offers military liaison training quarterly. Attendance is marked optional. Of 89 patrol officers, only 34 have completed it in the past 2 years. No officer has ever faced consequences for skipping it. Supervision failure. Sergeant Torres was aware multiple officers were skipping mandatory recommended training. She did not enforce attendance or report deficiencies to command staff. System failure. The department has no protocol for officers unfamiliar with military credentials to verify them in real time. No direct line to base security, no reference guide in patrol vehicles, no escalation procedure. Communication failure. When Officer Kim suspected an error, she informed Officer Callahan but did not contact a supervisor or halt the arrest. Departmental culture discourages officers from contradicting each other's decisions in the field. The report concluded this incident was preventable at 7 different points. It represents a catastrophic failure of training, supervision, and systemic protocols. Officer Ryan Callahan was placed on administrative leave, pending investigation. That lasted 9 days. On day 10, he was called to Chief Reed's office. The termination was effective immediately. 9 years of service ended in a 15-minute meeting. Reed's statement was brief. You arrested a federal officer for possessing federal credentials after refusing to verify her identity through available channels. This represents a fundamental failure of judgment and protocol that the department cannot overlook. Callahan's police certification was flagged for review. The state board would decide whether he'd ever work in law enforcement again. Sergeant Linda Torres was demoted to patrol officer and transferred to administrative duty. Her failure to enforce training requirements had contributed to a federal incident. She'd retire 18 months later. Pension reduced. Officer Dennis Park, who'd provided backup without questioning the situation, received a written reprimand and mandatory retraining. He'd stay on the force, but never make sergeant. Commander Hayes filed a federal civil rights lawsuit 3 months later. The complaint was 32 pages of carefully documented constitutional violations, false imprisonment claims, and interference with military duty. She asked for $1.8 million. The city's attorneys reviewed the evidence and realized they had no defense. Body camera footage showed everything. Witness testimony corroborated every claim. NCIS reports documented operational impact. They offered $400,000 to settle. Hayes' attorney laughed them out of the room. Your officer arrested a decorated military commander for having military ID, refused to verify her identity, made her late to classified briefings, and potentially compromised national security operations. She's not asking for money because she wants revenge. She's asking for an amount that ensures this never happens to another service member. The settlement negotiations took 6 months. The final agreement, $1.2 million paid to Commander Hayes, mandatory policy reforms, public apology from the city, and the creation of a military law enforcement liaison program funded by the city for the next 10 years. Before we get into the final outcome and where everyone ended up, make sure you're subscribed. These stories matter because they show what happens when systems fail and when accountability actually works. Hit that subscribe button and let's finish this. The ripple effects from this case changed law enforcement protocols across the entire region. The fallout spread faster than anyone anticipated. Within 2 months, Oceanside PD implemented mandatory military liaison training for all officers. No exceptions. Quarterly attendance verified by command staff. Failure to complete results in suspension without pay. Regional coordination. 7 police departments within 30 miles of military installations adopted identical protocols. Direct hotlines to base security. Reference guides in every patrol vehicle. Mandatory verification procedures. And state level. California. Post. Peace Officer Standards and Training added military credential recognition to basic academy curriculum. Every new officer would now learn to identify CAC cards, military licenses, and veteran ID cards. Federal response. The Department of Defense issued guidance to all military installations about coordinating with local law enforcement. Base commanders were instructed to proactively conduct joint training sessions. The program funded by Hayes's settlement became a national model. Military legal officers and police trainers working together, monthly coordination meetings, shared communication systems. Ryan Callahan applied to 12 police departments in 3 states. Every single one rejected him after background checks revealed the federal incident. Arrested military commander for possessing military ID was a permanent stain no department wanted to inherit. He applied for private security positions. Same result. TSA, rejected. Federal buildings, security, rejected. Even mall security companies passed after seeing his record. His marriage, already strained by rotating shifts and stress, collapsed under the weight of his termination and unemployment. Divorce finalized 8 months after the incident. He moved 3 states away to start over, taking a job in construction. Someone who'd spent 9 years in law enforcement was now hanging drywall for $19 an hour. His pension, 9 years of contributions, wouldn't vest until 20 years of service. He'd lost everything. Commander Patricia Hayes used her settlement in ways that created lasting change. Our $400,000 went to establishing the Hayes Military Civilian Relations Foundation, which provides training resources to law enforcement agencies nationwide. She became a sought-after speaker on civil-military coordination, police academies, base command briefings, congressional testimony about improving law enforcement interactions with military personnel. Her Navy career continued upward, promoted to captain 2 years after the incident. Given command of tactical training programs specifically focused on crisis de-escalation and communication. The classified briefing she missed? Her second-in-command covered it. No operational impact beyond a stern lecture from her CO about always having backup communication plans. Within the Navy, the incident became a teaching case about maintaining composure under unlawful detention. The total cost to Oceanside, $1.2 million settlement, $340,000 in legal fees, $180,000 to implement new training programs, $90,000 for new equipment and communication systems, immeasurable reputational damage. The total cost to Callahan: career destroyed, marriage ended, pension forfeited, reputation ruined, financial stability shattered. Where they are now: Patricia Hayes, Captain, U.S. Navy, Command's Training Division, National Advocate for Military-Civilian Relations, married with 2 children, foundation thriving. Ryan Callahan, construction worker, Ohio, divorced, no longer in law enforcement, lost contact with former colleagues. Linda Torres, retired from Oceanside PD, works part-time as a security consultant, teaches supervision courses focused on accountability. Oceanside PD, 0 military detention incidents in 4 years since. Program recognized by DoD as national model. This case showed what happens when simple verification could have prevented a federal catastrophe. But sometimes the evidence is clear, the violation is documented, and the system still protects the wrong person. That next story will show you exactly how far departments will go to cover up what they can't defend.